problems with my email, my connection. But all right. Well, I'm showing 10. Are you showing 10?
Yeah, I'm showing 9, but yeah, 10. That's 9.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead. I will open it up and we'll get started.
Sounds good.
The broadcast is now starting.
And basically dealing with material that's not there, rather than being out there with his crew and keeping the crew on the work, out there actually chasing around and doing a lot of paperwork. What about a materials manager's frustration with his crews that are out there looking for material? Supposedly it was received. Supposedly, it's, in some cases it's been issued to construction. But these guys are still out there looking for it, searching for material. And then a construction manager's frustration with low productivity overall, low productivity of his crews, and in this case we're going to talk about material readiness issues. So what all these issues have in common? It's a lack of real-time, easily accessible information about that material, and accessible by all members of that project team, from the field engineering to the warehouse. So why is there a lack of current, easily accessible information about materials? Well, our clients are telling us it's due to use of manual, paper-based work processes that are used to manage these critical construction materials. So what can be done to reduce the frustration with these issues? One of the things we're going to talk about today is implementing technology that's been used for years in other industries and has been proven to work in yours, and yours specifically being industrial construction. So why are more people implementing technology to solve these issues? We believe it's a lack of understanding, common misconceptions about the way technology can be used to support their work processes, and generally the feeling that you're just too busy to make a change. There's just too much going on. So what's the definition of insanity? I think we all know that it's doing the same thing repeatedly and expecting different results. So what are you going to do differently on your next job to be more productive? That's the question. That's the question we want to answer today and we want to address. So if we look at status quo materials management, availability, exchange of information, there's a lot of emails that are going around. There's a lot of phone calls. There's a lot of spreadsheets. There's supplier packing lists that are then used. There's a lot of clipboards that are out there, and then keying this information after the fact into corporate procurement systems. All of this creates a situation where the information that you're acting on is either kept in silos or islands of information that is not easily acceptable by the members of the project team. So what we're going to talk about is really field visibility into the supply chain, and specifically about Atlas RFID. We are a software company with RFID expertise. We grew from an RFID systems integrator company. Today we are solely focused on the industrial construction market. Within the industrial construction market, we're focused on materials management. And one of the things that we also do, and one of the things that we're going to talk about today, is building a business case for change. So, everybody wants to know, hey, this is great, but, what does it cost? How do we build a business case about that? So we're going to talk about that today, and then how we're adding that visibility all the way from expediting all the way to the issue of that material to the construction work phase. So in 2007, we were all about RFID and GPS. It was all about, I've got this material, I'm going to put an RFID tag on it. It could be a person, equipment, it could be material, whatever it may be, but we're going to keep up with the GPS location of that. Now we understand, through our work here in the industry, what we've added into the software, that the value is really in the information about that material. And that value comes from knowing, what work packages or work sequence that material is tied to, what area, what construction work area. Can I request material, buy that, and then can I find my material, buy that, and all the information about that material. So we've built the system from the field, and that's the perspective that you're going to look at. It's from the field back up to the corporate procurement systems, and it's built on industry best practices. You know, when we got our start, you know, back in 2007, tracking materials, really was working with Shaw, you know, on a power plant project and being able to track pipe spools. Well, now, you know, we've also began to work with Bechtel and up here in the oil sands with owners such as Suncor, and we've really incorporated all of these best practices into this software application. The things in the software application is we give you, rather than having material or information locked up in spreadsheets, now that material information is available and you can actually see the progress. What is of this material that I have, of this withdrawal request? You know, field engineers can look at their slice of the information. The materials manager can look at all of the information. What of these requests are completable? You know, what's in picking? What of these requests have been picked? And then how much of those have been picked and then been issued? And do I have any issues that are coming up as far as I've got requested material that is due today or a few days from now, and I need to focus my efforts on those materials so that I'm actually helping to make sure that the construction workplace has the materials they need to work the plan. From an architecture standpoint, we use ruggedized devices that are out there in the field. Mobile tablets, mobile units built for the extreme cold, extreme heat, that's running a mobile software. So rather than the information being locked up in spreadsheets and on paper that people have to take out to the field, now that information is available not only through a browser interface in the trailer, but also through a mobile interface in the field. So I have all the information about my materials, and I can post transactions out in the field, such as receiving and picking and issuing, and even preventative maintenance. We've also, again, having to build it from the field, and the fact that there is not networking capabilities in many of these remote locations, we've built an offline data synchronization routine that allows us to keep the people working in the field regardless of whether they have a connection. When they come back into the field or back into the range of a network, we can then transfer that data, and that data is then made available to all the other users according to their view in the browser application. But really, there's also the real need to extend the corporate systems that are out there and actually take in data to this site materials management system. And we do that through flat files that can be Excel files, whatever file that format that may be coming from your suppliers of choice, from your fabricators, from your equipment suppliers, and then finally from your engineering procurement systems that are out there, your MTO data, your model data, being able to pull all that information in, doing that manually or doing that through our integration engine that we've built, for the purpose, though, of actually extending that corporate system to the field. It came from job site visibility extension is truly meant to extend your corporate systems to the field and to streamline those actions so that you can be more productive and you can eliminate material readiness issues. From an industry adoption standpoint, we've got over 50 production deployment sites today. So back in 2007, you know, we talked that we ran our first pilot that was out there. Since then, we've got these, you know, production deployments. And these production deployments are on complex construction projects, you know, that have complex project supply chains. You know, we have deployments worldwide, U.S., Canada, China, Australia. Recently, I'm here in Calgary, Alberta. We're opening an office in Calgary. And we're here to, again, support these worldwide deployments that we have of the Jovix application. You know, we like to say that we're clipboard competitive. You know, there's most of the transactions that are done in the field today are done with a clipboard. We'd like to be clipboard competitive. And that's a difficult thing to do from a software perspective, but that's our goal, and that's where we strive to do, to make the job of the person in the field easy, but it allows you to collect that critical information so that, you know, decisions can be made at the, you know, trailer, at the corporate project in the management level. So we had to do that because it's a true site materials management system. We had to be able to handle all material situations. And so that means that, you know, we're going to use barcode labels, some that are for indoor, some that are for outdoor, some that are for applications of -40 or, you know, colder for that. Applications, you know, again, in Australia and these other places where it's very, very hot. So you've got to be able to handle all those different situations. We do use active RFID tags, some of the pictures you see here on the cable reels, you know, and the different pipe spools that have been mounted here. Not only are we handling unique items, but we can handle commodity items and then be able to kit these items together so that can facilitate fabrication and can facilitate, you know, module fabrication, as well as being able to deliver everything to the work face that's been kitted based off of either the isometric, the drawing, the work package, so that we can now have a confirmation, an electronic confirmation that everything has been requested, everything has been picked, and everything has been printed. And we're also able to do that with indoor storage locations, your true warehouse management, as well as your outdoor storage locations, your GPS yards, your zones, and your multiple layer zones that allow us to give you more information in the field about where is this material and what's the status of that material. So the next thing that we're going to really get into is, you know, what's the business case? You know, the how really and the why. You know, how would you do this? Why would you do this? From that, you know, one of the things that every one of our clients has used as a business case, and there have been studies that have been out there from, you know, CII, Fiatech has done some, there's other people, you know, in Canada that have done it, but we've had our clients actually out there, some with Six Sigma Black Belt project managers that have measured the time themselves. Now, you know, it's a 9 times faster is what it comes back to. It's, you know, 45 minutes on average versus 5 minutes to locate it with Jovix. And that 45 minutes, what goes into that 45 minutes is also the stories that we all know and that we've all talked about. You know, we hear about the horror stories. Well, this guy was out there looking for, you know, we had 6 guys out there for, you know, half a day looking for, you know, this one pipe spool or this one valve or, you know, whatever it may be. Those all go into your average of your 45. With this, then you can apply how many critical items you're tracking. Those critical items are, you know, pipe spools, cable reels, valves, instruments, you know, equipment, motors, whatever that may be. And then take that, multiply it times your time savings, come out with some hours, take your fully burdened labor rate, and this is an example of the cost savings that you can have. So this is one element. There's 3 elements typically in the business case. This is one element that we're going to talk about. So, you know, this is the environment that, you know, we're typically dealing with. You know, it may have snow, it may not have snow, but it's all going to be a lot of unique looking items that are out there that need to be found. You know, we got some, one of the things that I love to do is to be able to go to our job sites and talk to the guys that are out in the field. You know, this is one where I was able to talk to a pipe fitter. This is an oil sands project, you know, out there. And again, he said, look, I'm not sure how we found our spools before. And that's fun for us to go out and see, but it's also a direct correlation to construction productivity. And being able to stay at the end of a job, we haven't lost a single spool. We've been able to find all of our spools and find them quickly. And it's not just about finding that material or finding that piece of equipment. It's also what about preservation and inspection. So not only do you need to go out and do your preservation and inspection, you need to be able to find it efficiently, and you need to record that you've done that. And, you know, this is actually a quote from, you know, a field engineer on another project there where they just implemented the equipment inspection report work process. And, you know, just I was able to locate 4 out of 4 items looking for it. And that's great because this guy received less than probably 15 minutes of training to actually go out there, you know, use the mobile device and go out there and find it. So the second part of a business case is on material reorders. You know, so our clients have told us that, you know, status quo, there's typically some percentage of material cost on that project that's going to result in reprocurement and expediting. You know, a typical percentage that we see, you know, is 1%. So we'll say, look, if we can reduce that by half, by allowing you to not lose those materials, then this is another way to calculate yet another benefit that's out there. So again, in this example, it shows you apply your percentages and it gives you potential cost savings. Now, that potential cost savings could come in many different factors. I mean, one of the projects we've heard was, the guys talk about, the valve that came from Italy. And this was a unique valve, and, it came down to time. They said they had received it. They thought they had received it. And at the end of the day, they got to look for it, and they can't find it. And they spend a couple of days looking for it. That's time. That's the first example we gave as far as the business case. But in this case, they don't find it. They've got to have it because the construction schedule calls for it, and they're going to be in trouble if they don't. So they do some expediting. At the end of the day, to get that thing air freighted and to get it all in, it's $500,000 for that valve. And that's just one instance right there. And so there are, everybody's got stories about how these things occur, but you need to have some way that the business case is there if you'll have a system that will, help you understand what material is there and how it relates back to your project schedule. So, an example, of the hardware and support to do that is that you have a common hardware platform. And this is just an example of a job where, there's complex. You've got multiple pipe fabricators, multiple module fabricators, off-site storage, multiple yards on a job site. And having the ability basically to use a common hardware infrastructure and a common software infrastructure to gather that information. Again, to bring it all back into one single place or a single source of the truth. And a single source of the truth is truly information in one place, online, easily accessible, based on user permissions. And that information is easily accessible not just in the trailer, but also in the field on that mobile device. So, a field engineer can see what he's responsible for, and project manager can see what he's responsible for on his project, and then he can't see the other projects that are in there. So there's ways to slice and dice it. But, one of the logistics coordinators that we've been working on a big project in the States, basically, let's say, I'm not sure how we kept track of the material before implementing the tracking technology. And, the way they did it before was Excel spreadsheets, emails, and phone calls. And, thousands upon thousands of emails and phone calls, and it's keeping these things in spreadsheets. Again, with the siloed information, when you do keep your information like that and you don't have a single source of the truth, it's very difficult to find issues before they're going to be a problem, and be able to take corrective action before it's going to be a problem. So some of the ways that you can automate and streamline these material logistics are with what we call choke point readers, also call them gate readers. Those gate readers use RFID antennas. This is an example of an RFID antenna that you can see here. That RFID antenna can also be mounted, and the whole entire unit can be mounted in a heated NEMA enclosure, so that if you're in a cold environment like we are here in the oil sands, then you can actually, you can have it heated and have it a wireless network connection to it, so it's a completely standalone unit. This is an example of a module yard where it's actually we're able to install that on a trailer. The truck drives through the gate. The RFID tags are attached to the material. Now the material status is updated in the system. So now we know that this left this yard and entered this yard, and we have the date and the timestamp of each, and we know when they left. Now, there are other ways that you can do that. You could use an expensive GPS satellite tag, and you could put that on. You could pay your monthly fees, and you could do that. Or what you really need to know, and what we've found from a materials management standpoint in most cases, is you need to know when it left and when it arrived. And the cases where something gets lost or things like that will be minimal. They'll be a very small percentage of the overall time. So we found that this is a great way to streamline your materials logistics using the same infrastructure hardware, same software that everybody's using for the receipt picking and issuing. The other thing that you do is you can have mobile electronic receiving, and you can do this at the point of transaction in the field. So by doing that, you're actually able to, take information from your suppliers ahead of time. And this advanced shipping notice or the shipment information that you're getting, you can actually take that information, load it in the system, and now it's considered a shipment. And now that shipment information will allow you to go in and do your receiving against each single item. And if something is damaged, you can make some notes on that. And the other thing you can do is you can take a photo. Now, you can also, from a best practice standpoint, you can take a photo even if it's not damaged. And we'll talk about that in a little bit and the advantages that you have there from being able to do that. But because of the synchronization routine that we have in the system, it's really nice to be able there at the point of transaction to do everything, take your photos, and then when you get back to the trailer, you click one button, and it synchronizes all that information back up to the actual system itself. So our third part of the business case is labor productivity, and arguably this is the most important of the business case. This is specifically talking about direct labor, and direct labor in the fact that these are your construction crews that are out there, that are at the work face, that need to be productive. Their tool time needs to be as high as it can possibly be, and so we're taking a very conservative approach here, and we're saying we've got clients where they'll say, look, my percentage that on the status quo, I can estimate that 5% of the labor cost and efficiency I'm going to have are going to be related to materials issues. Either, like I said, the foreman's chasing it, they don't have the materials they need, and they're constantly looking for it. If we can take a very conservative approach and assume that we can reduce that by just a quarter, or really it comes out to a little over 1% of your estimated project labor cost, on these industrial construction jobs, that is a great amount of money for that business case that goes into that. So this is the third component that goes into that. Well, how then, we know why we would do that, but how we do that then is really on these critical materials that you're tracking. When you're using the active RFID that's out there, you can actually do what's called, we call them sweeps, but really they're automated material inventory. And you can do that by using a mobile device. You may have guys out there in the yard walking around all the time. You can have this mobile device in sweep mode to go out there and do that. And really what it's doing is it's keeping up with the GPS location of that material. So, one of the guys here, this is actually at a module yard, it's basically saying, look, we've got RFID tags on our spools. They basically do a scan of the whole yard. He's saying, look, it's a bit time consuming, but it gets the job done. And a bit time consuming, relatively speaking, is you can do the whole yard in probably, 30, 45 minutes, depending on the size of the yard. So it's not really, when it says it's time consuming, it's not, consider that against the fact that when people move things in the paper-based system, they never update that. And so this is actually giving them a huge advantage so that when they do go to actually pick that material, they've got it. Now, if they don't want to use the mobile device to do that, one of the best practices that are out there that we found are actually using vehicle mount devices. And so, these vehicle mount devices, what you're looking at here, you've got basically some antennas that are here. You'll have one on each side. And then we've got mobile software that's written that goes out and actually calculates that GPS location. We'll tell you, has that material moved from its original location? And then if it has moved from its original location, then what we can do is we can actually take it and we can progress the status of that. So we can take it, and one example that we have is that, this is actually on a job down in Texas where, they'll actually take the material and they'll move it from the laydown yard, they'll take it to the work face, and then they have, basically a truck that drives through certain times of the day. It goes through, records that information, and now they can change the status of that automatically to issue to construction. So now that we have been able to keep up with the location of that material, now what we can do is we can streamline the actual picking of that material. Again, half of the battle of getting the material to the work face and improving the construction productivity by eliminating material readiness issues is keeping up with the location. The other half is actually getting it to the actual work face. And so by doing that, there are a couple of best practices that we found out there, and we talk about creating you've got work packages that are out there, that are telling you here's the drawings and here's all the hours that go into this, and that's what you got to do. You can do the same thing on a smaller scale from a picking package. So when material's been requested, that can be converted to what's called a pick list by the warehouse. And that pick list then can actually have maps of the entire area, and then you can have the numbers here that actually show you where that material is. Now that map is handy because it allows you to do some type of route planning. And you also know the information about the material, all the weight, the dimension. So it can help you plan out, where you need your cranes, where you need your different materials. But the other thing that we have found through our deployments is that by having the drawing as part of that picking package, that is an extreme benefit to helping those guys look for that, especially when you're talking about spools. So all of the drawings can be stored with the material that's out there. And not only the drawing, but you can also have a picture. So if you, again, like we talked about earlier, if you'll take that picture at the point of receipt or the point where you laid it down, then you can actually have that information there available. So from a printing package, you can have the printed maps, the information about it, the actual drawing, and the actual picture all put together and given to this crew to go out there and pick that material. These types of things can help to avoid situations where you've got a spool that is the same number, but there's an A and a B, and the guys are out there looking for the A and the B, when in fact what had happened is the fabricator was able to actually weld those together before it left the shop, and so now that A and B are actually one actual spool that are out there. And so by having that drawing and understanding that, now the guys can understand, hey, wait a second, this is actually A and B put together, and it helps them rather than actually spending hours out there looking for a ghost, basically. So the printed package is the best practice to do that, but also as well as that, especially if you're in an environment where there is snow cover, you can also use that mobile device that gives you the GPS functionality, where you basically got a map of this location where it shows you and the material that you're looking for, as well as if you're using the RFID, you can actually have this signal indicator here that's telling you, and it begins to beep, right? So another quote from somebody that was out there. We again talked to somebody. This is actually, I guess, in Fort McMurray, but type in the spool number, find it, you walk to it, and then it begins to beep. And then when you begin to beep, you can actually take it, it's directional, and it'll actually take you to the material that you're looking for. Now, some of these, again, that we've learned from the field is that, when you get into sunlight situations, a lot of time the mobile device could be hard to see, which is why we've actually included this black line right here that tells the guy, so if you can see the black line in the sunlight, and even a lot of times in the yards, the construction site, there's a lot of noise that's out there, and that noise then you may not be able to hear the beeping as well, and so this line gives you an indication of when you're getting closer or colder to the actual RFID tag that's out there. So from a business case summary standpoint, to come back, if you take these ROI examples, whether it's indirect labor hours, whether it's material repurchase and your direct labor hours, you can come up with a significant business case for actually going out and doing this. So you can come up in this example, this is a $1 billion project, approximately $10 million in savings. Cost of is approximately $1 million to deploy the technology, which is a compelling ROI. And it's something that is definitely worth looking at and definitely exploring on your next job that you're going to have. But it's important to say that regardless of the size of your project, you can achieve substantial savings, okay? And this is by augmenting your materials management work processes with electronic automated work processes. By taking the pen and paper out of the actual data entry and data collection where appropriate, and making that information more available in an automated fashion or in a more real-time online fashion. Again, specific to the, from expediting all the way to issue, this is what will help you give your visibility into the supply chain. So when we look at the benefits and the costs, there's an interesting correlation there. The benefits of using a system increase as the number of critical materials tracked increases. When you think about it, the more items that you have on a project that are critical to the construction schedule, the more chances, the more probability that there is something that could happen where that material is either not received, or the storage location was recorded incorrectly, or it was issued to the field and that was recorded incorrectly, or it finally just got lost at the workplace. All of those probabilities increase as the number of critical items that you have on that project increase. Now, from a cost perspective, and this is the cost specifically of the Jovic system, everybody wants to know what is the cost. What is it? That's fine. I may believe the benefits. I may need, I may be from Missouri. I need somebody to show me those benefits, but when I need to understand what the cost is going to be from that. Typically, the cost is anywhere between 0.08 to 0.12% of the total investment or the total value of that job, total project job. So, if we come over and we look at here, we believe that even a $100 million job, which really these days is not that big of a job anymore, but a $100 million job, total project cost of that. I mean, this could be, the scope could be just an electrical scope on a transportation job. But again, you're going to look at that and you're going to say, maybe I'm just tracking 1,000 items. We've had a job that was very successful where the guys tracked 1,000 cable reels, and they were doing that because they had the electrical scope. And one of the things that drives the cost on these is your tagging strategy. And your tagging strategy goes into, active RFID, barcode. Am I just going to use GPS? I'm just going to tag this thing with GPS only. What am I going to do? Am I going to tag it at the supplier? Am I going to tag it at the site when it gets there? There's pros and cons for each one of those. There are proven methodologies for each one of those. There's also proven timing on when you introduce each one of those. The other one is systems integration. Am I going to integrate this with another system? We have the capabilities to do that. I mean, we integrated with Smart Plant Materials, FabTrack, other corporate procurement systems that are out there. Do you want to do this in an automated fashion, or are you going to use flat files and spreadsheets to do that? There's pros and cons of each. You need to understand those. And again, from a system support and management, this is somewhat of a paradigm shift that you're having in your materials management work processes. So you're going to need to have a support network that's in place to actually help implement that change and ensure that that change is adopted. To do that, you do need an expert, and this is where Atlas can come into play for you. Every industrial construction project is different. Just like if you're, the engineering is different, the planning is different, the permitting is different. Everything is different. So getting in there, you need to really understand, and you need to have a partner that will come in and help create a customized deployment. And again, going back to all these questions that have to be answered: supplier versus tagging versus how you're going to do that. We've done a lot in the last few years to bring on industry experts on our staff, people that have been in industrial construction, that have been in materials management, been in project management, to understand that work with us as process engineers and process consultants to help us go in and understand what are your status quo materials management work processes. What is your organization? If you're an owner in the oil sands, how many EP houses are you working with? How many suppliers of choice? How many construction contractors? How many equipment manufacturers are you dealing with? How many fabricators? Understanding that complete landscape and then bringing that and boiling it down to work processes that are based on best practices that make sense. And then the other thing that you have to do there is you have to build that business case. Building a business case is is something that is unique to every organization, but it's something that we can help you build, and we can give you examples. We can let you talk to our existing clients. You can talk to people that are out there. You know, this technology, this use of this technology is past bleeding edge at this point, and it's, I would say, leading edge. And it's getting into, you know, this is how it's going to be done. And so we can help you understand that. And one of the things that we're, again, you know, talk to our clients, but we're extremely pleased about is that we do meet and exceed our clients' requirements. The Atlas team is consistently, you know, touted as one of the reasons people like to do business with us. And it's important because we first come in, seek to understand, and then come up with this customized deployment based on your business needs. So again, one version of the truth. That's what you can do, and you can eliminate all the spreadsheets, all the, you know, pen and paper where you can. Try to get all this into one area that's online, that can be accessible by all the different people, so that when you're in your staff meetings, you're in your status meetings, everybody's working from the one version of the truth that says, you know, my material, when is my material going to be here? Can I drill into that and figure out what are the issues with it? And can we manage to the actual, you know, let's just deal with the issues. But we know what the issues are, and we have plenty of time to plan for those different issues. So I guess the question is, what are you going to do differently on your next job to be more productive? And Nicole, with that, I'll turn it over to you, and we'll take some questions.
All right, thank you so much, John. For those of you who may have joined late, if you have questions, you can use the questions tab right there on the toolbar, and those will come directly to me. We can get some of those answered if you have them. Let's see, one person wants to know, what is the expected life of the RFID tag without any maintenance?
Yeah, so the actual active RFID tag has a 5 to 7 year battery life.
Okay. We're getting a few folks who want a copy of the presentation. I did say at the beginning we have recorded this, both the audio and the visuals, and we will be packaging and posting it on the fiatech.org website. Give us a day or two to get that done and posted, and you can find it under the events section. In the webinar section, we have an archive of all of our past webinars, so you can grab it there. Let's see. Can you talk a little bit about maintenance organizations that you know of that are using this past the construction phase?
Yeah, maintenance, you know, personally, we're not working with anyone right now as Atlas that are doing it. You know, we've been, as this has grown, it's really grown from the construction side of the house, you know, and it's actually to get there. Now, there's a lot of people that are talking about it. There's a lot of people that want to do it, and it's easily transferable. You know, the questions are, and when you're talking about active RFID, if you're going to leave something once it's installed, you're not going to leave the active RFID tag on there because that really doesn't make any sense to do. But, you know, what you can do is you can actually leave, you know, one of these ruggedized barcodes, a barcode label, depending on where it's going to be installed. And there's also an opportunity to switch that to a passive RFID. Now, the passive RFID has an extremely long life, theoretically, forever. You know, it's it doesn't have any moving internal components, doesn't have a battery. And so there are a lot of people that are talking about, hey, I've got all this information that I've collected during the construction phase, preventative maintenance. I've got all the routines. You know, you can store all the supplier and the vendor's original equipment, maintenance and routines, what's been done, when it was received, when it was installed, where is it in the plant. So there's extreme upside and potential for doing that. We just, you know, from a company's perspective, everything that we've built in the product has come from the field, from these EPCs and owners and contractors that we've been working with. And I fully believe at some point one of the owners is going to say, hey, I want you to leave this, you know, and let's start using this for maintenance.
Thanks, John. What kind of staff do you normally need on a project to handle this technology?
So again, that's a good question. It's going to depend on the size of the project and the complexity of the project. There are projects where typically, there is one person that is responsible for running the system, and then you've got your laydown yard crew, and your laydown yard crew can be, trained to use this. I'll give you two examples. One down in Texas is actually, a fixed facility. In that fixed facility, they're building oil rigs, and they're building big structures like that. They've got one person that's responsible for the system. He's responsible for all on-site support and making sure that the data is correct in the system and the data is flowing out of the system. And he supports the actual crew in the yard that's responsible for offloading the spools and the material and the pipe supports and actually doing that. Now, the other example is, let's take a big SAG-D up in Fort McMurray that's got, multiple suppliers and it's got multiple vendors and all that. The staffing that's in place there's again one person that is, about, I'd say probably like a level of a field engineer that is the actual, manages the system. And that person is responsible then. In that case, they actually have a rotating shift, and they'll actually have two people on each shift. Well, I think it's 14 on, 14 off. And those people are responsible for tag association, tag application, running the sweeps, making sure that the tags are removed when they need to be, and collecting the tags and disassociating the tags. So in that case, it's really a crew of 3, but they had to have 5 to account for the shift change.
Thanks, John. Can this be integrated into Revit models, the ID tags, etc.?
Well, the answer to that is absolutely yes. I mean, that's why we have the application programming interface. That's one of the things that we've worked on over the last 12 months to greatly improve. It allows us to easily integrate with other systems that are out there, modeling systems, engineering systems, procurement systems.
What's the average read range of an active tag?
The active tags that we use today have a 100-meter read range. There are some other active tags that you can get out there that have a longer read range. But what we found is that for doing the sweeps and doing in the controlled environment that we have, as well as the choke point readers, the 100-meter is more than enough to get the job done.
Can you share what handheld models you use?
Yeah, we're using Trimble Nomad on the handheld side, and then on the tablet we're using one from a company called Mobile Demand. I think it's a T7200. Those are the models that we use right now. And there's also things on the drawing board to be able to use some other different tablets that are out there. Those are the 2 that we're using right now.
John, any recent experience with negative responses to productivity improvements by organized labor in the field? Do they feel they are losing hours?
No, we haven't, and I'll tell you it's interesting, because one of the things that, and I can speak, recently to at least the Fort McMurray area, is that, these guys out there, they would rather actually find the material than being out in the freezing cold searching for material that's out there. We've also had good responses in our job sites down in the southern United States. That's a natural thing to think, hey, these guys are going to be frustrated, but honestly, when these guys are professionals, and you may have a few that are out there that want to milk the system, but these guys want to be on the job. They want to be on a crew that's productive, and they want to be doing their job as well as they can, because that's going to help them get that next job.
What kind of additional data requirements need to be considered when setting a project up with RFID?
Well, it depends on, exactly how you're going to use the system, and that's where a lot of the consultation comes into place. I mean, if you're just going to track something, if you just want to be able to track the location of your pipe spools, well, that's pretty simple. I mean, you can take a spool list or master spool list from your fabricator, pull it in, put the tags on either at the fabricator location or at the job site and keep up with the location. if you want to get into a truly integrated site materials management system, then you need to be able to consume MTO data. You need to be able to know purchasing information. You need to be able to have that information come in. So what has been purchased? What is actually, what should we be coming in? When you get into what we call tag packages, let's say you're getting a boiler, you're getting a turbine, you're getting these different things, you need to be able to consume that information from that supplier, and that can be difficult, but there's ways to do it. And, because that supplier may have, many, many sub-suppliers. But, through a lot of the work that we're doing on the new nuclear projects down in the southern United States, we've been able to solve that problem with a supplier, a major supplier, than sub-suppliers. So you've got to have all that information, because at the end of the day, what you need to know is what is coming, what needs to be expedited against, and then also, you'd like to get in these required site dates. You get some of this information from your P6 schedules, and have all that information so that then the material can then be requested. And then finally, from your work package information, if it's used a lot up here in Alberta, but if you're using work package to manage your work, then we have a way to consume those work packages so that we know then what material is against that, so that you can request all your material based on work package or module or by construction work area.
Thanks. Do you have an app for mobile devices?
Do we have an app for mobile devices? We don't have an app right now. That's on the drawing board. But as far as accessing it, right now everyone's using the actual ruggedized devices that are out there.
Do you offer on-site training, and how long does it take to train a person on this system?
Yeah, and again, that's going to vary. So if you're talking about a person that's out in the field that's using the system, you can have those persons trained in literally an hour. It's very, and again, the whole system has been built so that the guy in the field can do a very specific job, and that very specific job is very easy to follow. There's only certain things that they need to learn. Now, when you get into a material coordinator position where you're managing the data, or even what we call an RFID manager, a system coordinator, then the training for that is longer. For material coordinator, you're probably going to need a good 2-3 days of full training, plus you're going to need on-site support for some period of time. We offer all of that. And then for a system admin, you're going to need, we typically have at least 3 months of on-site support. And again, this is probably a more complex site materials management type, with logistics and things like that involved. So it's going to vary, but the guys in the field is very short. The guys running the system can be longer and more in-depth, depending on how in-depth you're going to use the system.
Thanks. In your experience on these major construction projects, who tends to be the project sponsor or your customer? Is it the owner, the EPC, major contractors, or subcontractors? Who's driving this?
Absolutely, and that's a good question, and that's going to be market dependent. So what I will say is that what we've seen in the oil sands here in Alberta is that a lot of this is driven by the owner. And the owner, and it's just because of the way the contracts are written up here, that's because of the uniqueness of the engineering, it's because of the fast tracking of the projects that are out there. The owner is heavily involved, and in fact maybe purchasing some of the material, or whether an EP house is going to do it. So the owner tends to be the actual sponsor here, and within the owner's organization, it's typically someone in construction management, or materials management, or logistics, somewhere in that area. Now, in other markets where you might be building power plants, or maybe building LNG facilities, or maybe building these other things where the engineering is more tried and true, you're doing some more repeatable thing, especially if you're building, you're doing some baghouse type environmental work, or you're building natural gas type, power plants, then there's going to be probably more of an EPC type contract. And in that EPC type contract, then we're seeing that someone in the EPC organization, typically again in that organization at the materials management or construction management level, some cases the project management level, those are going to be the sponsors for that job.
Any future developments underway to take advantage of smartphone technology?
Absolutely, that is on our product roadmap without a doubt. We see there's two ways, and we talk about accessibility of the information. And accessibility of the information, there's the ruggedized devices that are workhorses. Those are the things that have to go out, and I would say those are the data, they're basically data, consumers. They go out and they actually post the transactions. They do everything in the field. They've got to survive the weather. They've got to survive the elements. Then you've got, your management type or your field engineers that may not be out there for that long, that have their iPads, that have their cell phones. And for those, we absolutely see, the future of an app or some, there's other things that we've been talking about as far as ways to allow that to be on multiple platforms so that I can actually just say, hey, show me this spool, let me do even a progress against it, let me, update some information about it. So it's on the roadmap. I can't show you that today, but it is on the roadmap.
Can you reuse the tags after they have been used to track other materials?
Absolutely. Specific, the active RFID tags, again, 5 to 7 year battery life. You want to reuse those tags as many times as you can. So when you actually associate, what you're doing in the beginning is you're associating that tag, that license plate number on the tag, to the actual material item. And then when you're done with that, let's say you fly the material up, then you're going to cut that tag off, and then you're going to disassociate it, and you're going to use it on the next component.
Okay, this person has 2 questions. How can you apply this technology in automation construction processes? And is it possible to instance real process plans using the RFID?
Honestly, I don't know if I understand that question. But what you can do with the system today is you can update the status and the progress of a material based on a geolocation. So in other words, if I've moved something from here to a work face, I can status that, and that helps us to do that and tracks all that material movement to be able to keep up not only with the location, but what is the status of this, and be able to track that throughout the history of that material.
By percentage, how much of the total investment in equipment can be reused for future projects, or what is the expected life cycle for the equipment?
Yeah, so again, the tag's 5 to 7 years. The actual mobile devices that you get into, you use a mobile device 3 years, you're kind of stretching it, right? I mean, this is technology. So, you can, I would say that the tag reuse on multiple projects is great because, let's say that you're a contractor and you're running the job for 24 months, well, you got the next job starting up, well, then you can take those tags and use them on the next job. You might be able to use the mobile devices as well, but by the time you get to 3 years on a mobile device, typically something new, better, faster has come out that you might want to look at. It's just typically, a mobile device that's out there in the field, think of it as your laptop. It's your computer. It's really no different. It's just in a smaller, compact form factor that's ruggedized that can be taken out and dropped in the mud.
Okay, thanks. We have still a few more questions. We're going to have to maybe John follow up with those folks individually, a few on costs and whatnot as well. And maybe we could end with this final question on or can you talk a little bit about any significant challenges in startup?
Absolutely. Well, significant challenges in startup are, just resistance to change. And you've got to understand that any time that you're going to, we talked about clipboard competitive, right? We want to be clipboard competitive because at the end of the day, the guys in the field are the ones, the benefit is to the project as a whole. The benefit is to the owner as a whole because you're going to get your project done on time, on schedule, and you're going to do it with, the budget that you've allocated for that. And you're hopefully not going to lose any material by using a system like this. But the workload, is shifting somewhat from a data clerk to the guys in the field. And so that's why you have to have a system that streamlines and makes it easy and clipboard competitive for the guys in the field to be able to do that. But there has to be, going back to that consultative approach that we talked about, it has to be a well thought out work process that's supported by management, and then that has to be then reinforced with your onboarding of your craft, onboarding of your indirects and your directs, and it has to be reinforced. There has to be a win in it for everyone, and that's definitely possible, and that is what you have to address to enact the change.
Okay. Well, there's still 1 minute, and there is one more question, so I'll just ask it. Does Atlas have offer any tracking of workers for a muster call?
Right now, we don't have personnel tracking as far as the muster calls. I mean, you could take one of these active RFID tags that you put on material, you could put it on a person, and you could then have them all do that. But no, we don't do that right now. We've had some people that have asked for that. There are some solutions that are out there that can do that. It's something that we're going to look at in the future if the demand is there. But for right now, we are focused on the low-hanging fruit of materials management. And there are better, faster, more efficient ways to do materials management work processes, and that is where the money is. The money is in the crew productivity and the guys out there having the material they need to do and eliminating those material readiness issues so that you can improve construction productivity.
Okay, well, thank you. We've hit the end of our hour. I want to thank you, John, very much for spending it with us and sharing what you all are doing. And final reminder, I do hope all of you are planning to attend the FIATech Technology Conference and Showcase, which is coming up next month, March 25th to the 27th. Atlas RFID will be there, as will many other companies. We've got a big tech showcase with I think 40 or so different exhibitors that will be there, and we've got over 100 speakers. All of our presentations this year on our program are going to be given by end users and clients. So we have a really strong program. Encourage you to go to our page and check it out and register by March 1st to get the early bird cutoff. It's a couple $100 off of your registration, and make sure you book your hotel by then as well, as we expect that hotel to fill up with spring breaks and just overall weather patterns. In Texas that time of year, it's a very popular place. So please do that by March 1st and share the opportunity with others. And with that, I want to wish everyone a good day, and thanks again, John.
All right. Thank you.